I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Cook Islands.
Thank you, co-chairs, excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. The Cook Islands is grateful to be invited to the session of the first Preparatory Committee meeting here for the third conference on DRR and to participate in the dialogue on considerations for the post-2015 framework for disaster risk reduction. We express our sincere appreciation to the organizers of the PrepCom for bringing us to this important meeting, and we align ourselves with the sentiments expressed by distinguished colleagues in congratulating you and His Excellency the Ambassador of Thailand and co-chairs of the meeting. Now, in terms of the proposed elements of the post-2015 framework for disaster risk reduction, we first and foremost reiterate our support to the position taken by the Pacific Island countries and territories in collaboration with a number of stakeholders at the Pacific Platform for Disaster Risk Management held 2nd to 4th of June in Suva, Fiji. We also acknowledge that the Pacific position resonates closely with the position taken by our friends in the African Regional Platform and as well the one for the Americas. At this juncture, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Ms. Margaret Wallstrom for making the effort coming to the Pacific last year for the first joint platform meeting, and of course for your video message during our session this year in Fiji. We thank you, Madam. The Cook Islands also supports the compilation report on consultations on the post-2015 framework for disaster risk reduction in its delivery, in its entirety, and wishes to acknowledge and endorse the work that has been conducted to inform the preparatory process of the Third World Conference on DRR. The Cook Islands also recognizes the importance of the suggested elements for the post-2015 framework for disaster risk reduction and associates itself with the purpose, the scope and the plan of action expressed, especially in the action to prevent the creation of new risk and reducing current risk. We acknowledge the contribution of the Hyogo Framework for Action in assisting the Pacific region to build stronger and more resilient communities, and also to recognize the more efforts will be needed to prevent risk accumulation and build resilience in the Pacific for the benefit of the current and future generations. The importance of adopting a whole-of-society approach is of utmost importance. Different stakeholders, including government agencies, civil society, private sector, and development partners all have a unique and essential role to play in building resilience. Inclusivity is central to the process of building resilience. Persons with disabilities, women and men, the elderly, children, youth, migrants, and volunteers are all important and are powerful agents of change and improvement, with special consideration to the needs of the vulnerable and to the observation of human rights. We feel that the post-2015 framework for disaster risk reduction should have linkages with other global processes, including the post-2015 Sustainable Development Goals and the new Global Climate Change Agreements, in order to strengthen coherence and mutual reinforcement of these international mechanisms. We also believe in the importance of developing a strong mechanism for supporting the implementation and monitoring of the post-2015 framework for disaster risk reduction in the Pacific region, and to assist Pacific Island countries and territories in the reporting process. In this regard, we feel that the reporting process should, for the Pacific, also be aligned with that of the strategy for climate and disaster risk resilient development in the Pacific and with the relevant national development plans. In terms of the guiding principles, we support those that have been suggested. In addition, we feel there needs to be an emphasis on an integrated approach to addressing disaster and climate change-related risk. For the future, this should be a standard in terms of addressing disaster risk. The Cook Islands supportive of the suggested implementation measures. However, it needs to be recognized that our capacity to record and account for disaster damage and loss needs to be strengthened. We also acknowledge the support of some of our donors in developing this capacity, but will ask for further assistance in this regard. We support the proposal for targets to be developed at the global level. We must ensure that these targets take into account various cross-cutting considerations and be mindful that accurate baselines need to be developed to help most targets realistic. Developing such baselines is a challenge, and we would welcome assistance in this regard. The Cook Islands is keen to continue to be part of the process for developing post-2015 framework for disaster risk reduction. We look forward to receiving a draft of the new framework in the coming months and to contributing to further preparatory discussions here at the global level, and as well as the context of the Pacific region. Concluding, the Cook Islands wishes to register its support and endorsement of the Prep Committee's outcome statements as described to for the 3rd UN World Conference of DRR in Sendai, Japan, March 2015. Co-chairs, I thank you.
I thank you, the distinguished representative of the Cook Islands.